This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
This is a Monday edition of the Bax and Grant Sports Show. Good morning and hello to all of you lovely people out there. It's Tebow-mania, Grant.
Woo!
The masses have finally been happy again.
They're Tebowing all over America in celebration.
Johnny Manziel's out of rehab. Tebow's back in the NFL. ESPN is having Christmas in April. They don't know what to do with themselves, Grant.
I was wondering when he was going to come back.
Everybody was thinking it was going to happen, and it's finally happened, and we are super excited about it. We'll definitely dive into that in a little bit. We've got a fun show for you, a Monday edition, which means Connor Christensen will be here to talk about his fight corner. Interesting topics that we talked about last Monday about doping and steroids and everything. But we're really excited to have him back on the show in our second segment. But before we get into it too far, Grant, where can the good people find us on social media?
They can find us on Facebook at the Bax and Grant Sports Show. They can also go on Twitter and tweet at us at BG Sports Show. You can email us at bgsportshow@gmail.com. Also, you can Instagram us any pictures you find interesting of your favorite team, of a picture you think that we might find enjoyable. Like, let's say you are in Florida and there's a Florida license plate, but you say find a Go Pack license plate.
Hey, man.
Feel free.
Stick together.
Feel free to send us a picture, hashtag the Bax Grant Sports Show. That picture would also pop up, and you'll be able to see it on Sports Radio America. I just want to point out quickly that when we were in Florida, we did see a lot of Packer fans down there. We did.
They are universal. Danny Hoffenstein and I saw a Lamborghini in a Best Buy parking lot with a big old Packers G on it. I think it said Pac-12 or something like that. Like, I thought it was Aaron Rodgers for a minute. I was like, Aaron Rodgers at Best Buy. Aaron Rodgers at Best Buy.
Let's go in.
I couldn't find him. I looked like briefly, but I was like GB Pac-12 or something. Like, it basically was like looked like it would be something Aaron Rodgers would drive. But I don't feel like he'd be that open with like, oh look, Packers, it's me, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I feel not.
I don't feel like he's that kind of guy. But either way, though, so before we...
and then we also are on the Cube.
We are. Don't forget about the Cube. You can watch it. You can listen to the show as you normally can on Spreaker, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Central. You can also catch us on Live 365 and tune in sportsradioamerica.com from 12 to 3 Eastern. And you can also download our podcast on iTunes. So numerous ways to get involved with us. We love talking with you guys. And aside from that, though, we are ready for the show. We're super excited. And like I said, I started it off with Tebow-mania. For those of you that haven't heard, Tim Tebow is coming back to the NFL. He is going to be signing a one-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles today, Grant.
Why not? Why not the Eagles? And they've had a crazy offseason. We were talking before the show that everybody is just like any person that's a fan of like managing or that likes to jump into Madden and just like go in and have crazy fun with
turn the salary cap off
and then just like getting a whole bunch of players. This is the Eagles off season is really good for those kind of people because look at all the running backs they have now and look at all the quarterbacks they have now. And once everything starts to unfold, it's going to be really interesting.
It will
what Chip Kelly has in mind for this team because it was kind of a question mark. I didn't necessarily disagree with it.
No.
I was okay, but getting rid of Foles, I was like, okay. And grabbing Bradford, I was like, okay, we'll see how he does with that. And he also has Mark Sanchez. And then wondering maybe if he was going to go try to get somebody else or what he was going to try to do. And then picking up Tim Tebow literally out of nowhere. Like, I knew he was probably going to pop up in the league once or twice.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was going to be now and with the Eagles. I did not see that one coming.
Well, they did bring him in for a workout. I believe it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And there was... people, and then they didn't sign him, and people were like, okay, that was like we needed a little dose of Tim Tebow to satisfy ESPN for at least a week and a half or two. And then it went away, and I was like, okay, no problem. But then, like, this is, like, for real. Like, you know,
they're signing him.
It's crazy. Like, the official signing will happen later on today. Obviously, it's only 9 a.m. unless they're on the boat over there in Philly already signing him this morning. But now, Grant, looking at all the quarterbacks that the Philadelphia Eagles have, how many games, if you were to list all 5 quarterbacks that the Philadelphia Eagles have, who do you feel like would have the most playoff wins? Sam Bradford, Mark Sanchez, or Tim Tebow? I won't mention the other two because they haven't seen the field enough.
that had the most
playoff wins.
Well, I know Bradford has not been to the playoffs.
You're right.
He almost went to the playoffs, but he was one game short, I believe 2 seasons ago. Sanchez, I don't know off the top of my head. And Tim Tebow only has 1, so I'm going to say Sanchez.
You are
has
correct,
more.
yes. But do you know who's won a playoff game in more recent history, Tim Tebow or Mark Sanchez?
Well, because I know this answer.
I know you do.
So it's actually Tim Tebow.
It is. For those of you that might not know that, the last time that Mark Sanchez won a playoff game was 2010, back when he was with the Jets, when they were actually a pretty good team for a while. They went to back-to-back AFC championship games for a while and were really a contender in the AFC, which was kind of surprising. But that was also when the Patriots and the Steelers were pretty hot for a while as well. So they kind of always got overshadowed by them. But yeah, Tim Tebow has won a playoff game as most recent as 2011. That was that big, huge overtime victory against the Steelers.
Right.
Where Demaryius Thomas did 99% of the work on that play, but Tebow still had to get him the ball.
My thing with Tebow is that he's not really the best quarterback, but I think it's because he has such a positive ego.
Yes.
It's what makes him so popular, and that, of course, he was big in college. But yeah, if I watched a video when he was coming into the league, and they were looking at his delivery, his form, and they were saying, in reality, he's not going to do very well in the NFL.
Yes, I remember seeing that too.
He needs to quicken his release, and there was a bunch of other things. I can't remember the whole thing, but I'm sure I could dig it up and find it if anybody was interested. But yeah, there are some problems with his game. Yeah. But he still, what's a good thing if we're just going to transitioning into positives and negatives of Tim Tebow is that he has won a playoff game, and he has taken a team more or less, you could argue that, to the playoffs. He will more than likely not get into any negative issues that we've seen with players in these last couple, even in this offseason alone.
He's not the type of player that's going to draw a lot of attention to himself. Just because of the fact that it's like, oh, look at me, I'm Tim Tebow. It's like, no, everything he does it because he loves the game and he realizes that it's a very unique opportunity to play in the NFL, and not a lot of people get it. Now, Grant, his 3 seasons in the NFL, not glorious numbers by any means, but not atrocious either. Why don't you tell the people what his stats were for his first 3 years?
His completion percentage is 47.9, which isn't the best, but it's not awful.
Exactly.
He has 2,422 pass yards, 197 rush attempts, with 989 rush yards, which I feel is pretty decent.
Yeah.
With 209, wow. 29 total touchdowns.
Yes.
Say 209, sign them right now. 29 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, which is actually fairly good for...
It's a lot lower than I thought
for
it would
3
be.
seasons.
Yeah.
Even though he's not started every single game of those, granted. But for a young quarterback who's learning his way in the league, 9 interceptions with 29 touchdowns is not bad.
It's really
That's really good. That means he knows ball security.
Yep, exactly. And now, going back, you were saying to his mechanics, I want to make this point fast before we move on. A lot of people ridicule the man for his throwing mechanics. They say he holds the ball too low, he points his elbow out too far. But then I was reading an article on thesportsquotient.com, and the article was talking about Tebow, and it said most people would not argue that Tom Brady holds the ball low, which is kind of, you normally hold the ball, right about here. That's about where Brady holds it, but he holds it a little bit lower than that. And then it also wouldn't go on to say, nor would people argue with Peyton Manning or Michael Vick for pointing the ball back. When they throw it, it's literally pointed straight back. Then the article would go on to say, so then why argue with Tebow for doing both? Because he does both of them, not pretty much exactly how, if you were to combine all 3 of their throwing styles into one. And it's weird because going through and reading and talking with athletic trainers and reading the sports science and watching those videos, they say that Tebow's throwing motion is actually not that bad. It's just the fact that it's not the traditional throwing style of an NFL quarterback that a lot of people have an issue with.
Makes sense.
I can see where they're coming from because, you've got to do it the NFL way. Well, sure, but when has Tebow ever done anything the NFL way?
Right. And I mean, that's a good thing because the NFL way this year has been punching your significant others, doing drugs, or murdering people.
So I mean, at the office for me. I don't know. I don't know about you, but
so I mean, doing the Tebowing and being a nice guy,
What's
going
wrong
against
with
the
that?
NFL
The
ways.
NFL needs more nice guys in the league. I don't understand it, Grant. It's interesting. I'm excited to see where Tim Tebow goes. But when you talk about nice guys, normally you think of the Green Bay Packers as a whole as an organization, correct? You know, they're one of the they're one of the nicer guys.
Players, yes. Fans, no.
No, team-wise, you think of the Packers organization, and you're like, oh, they're a pretty nice group of people. McCarthy's respected.
I don't think a lot of people would think that, though, because everybody will just think of the fans
well,
instantly
forget
and say
the fans
that they're
for a
jerks.
second, okay? Stop. It's not about us right now. Anyway, you think of the organization as a whole.
The players and the coaches, yes.
Yes, they're relatively nice. Now, as Packer fans, Grant, we have been bred to hate everybody in the NFC North. Till death do us part, basically.
Yes.
Like, we hate the Bears, they hate the Vikings, and you realize the Lions just stop.
I just realized that you're transitioning right
Thank
now.
you. You finally caught on. Like, I jumped on the train about 40 minutes ago, and you're just like, wait! Like, you're just now finally figuring out what's going on. But anyway, Grant, the reason I'm asking this is because Packer fans are known for being such a nice group. Well, they're known for instilling a lot of hatred in other people around the leagues. But as us Packer fans, getting outside the NFC North, who, as a Packer fan, do you hate the most outside of the NFC North?
Well, I would say currently, most recently, just off of games that we've played,
Yes.
or that they've played, instead of like normal overall league hatred, I'd say.
Sure.
Currently, the Seattle Seahawks, because they've had our number the last couple of times. You have the touchception or Fail Mary, whatever
Mary.
you want to. I've heard a couple. Touchception is one.
Never heard of that.
You've never heard of that?
Never heard it.
Well, why don't you hit the internet a little harder next time? Good try. And Baxter is done for the day.
No, I've never heard of touchception. What
Really?
the heck? No.
It's very popular.
Anyway,
Connor's
so the
heard of it.
Seahawks. That's all
heard
that
of it.
matters, apparently.
And 49ers is another recent
Yep.
team, even though now this last season they haven't had the best season, but a couple years prior they kicked him out of the playoffs a couple of times.
They did. Back-to-back years.
Yep, 2 years in a row, and also I believe regular season game. They beat them.
Yep. Opening day 2 years ago.
Yep, and then Seattle.
Yeah.
This
No,
year. So those teams.
So you think those are the biggest ones?
Currently, yes.
Okay,
if we're getting out of the NFC North.
If you're looking out of the NFC North, if you look long term, I feel like the 49ers not the 49ers, the Giants also have to be a hard knee because they tormented us for many a year, even with the fact of the 49ers, still being... We've had, I think, more history with the 49ers. You can make an argument for the Cowboys as well, going back to the early Super Bowls and stuff, but the Giants, I'd say within the last 15 to 20 years, and the 49ers have been those two teams that have really bumped heads.
Heel
Yeah, they're
of
really
the Green Bay
Achilles heel,
Packers.
because even when the Packers were having their breakout years, it's like, oh, we have to go play the 2-13 Giants. Oh, and now they're going to beat us by 40. It's just like, that's just kind of how it was for a while, that no matter how good the Packers season was, the Giants still managed to always do something to us. The 49ers, that was just really two really good teams battling each other out, and then the fact that people didn't know how to take out Colin Kaepernick with the read option. Now that he's been figured out, that's a whole other game now. They realize that they can't beat him on the ground. But... So would we agree that the 49ers are the most hated team, like, overall, or?
I'd say if you went and polled every Packers fan and said, out of the NFC North, who over the entire history of the organization,
Yes.
I would say you would get a mix of either the Cowboys or the Giants.
Yes.
I feel like those would be the two biggest ones. 49ers would be up there. And the Seattle Seahawks are only because of recent years.
Yeah. No, I would agree
mainly
with that.
the last season and last 2 seasons.
Who do we hate that's an AFC team? I can't really think of a lot of AFC teams. Like, an NFC, it makes sense. You face
Right.
them more. You have to go through the playoffs.
You don't see the AFC teams a
AFC-wise,
lot.
like, do we hate the Patriots? Not really.
No.
Do we hate the Steelers? No.
We beat them in the Super
yeah,
Bowl. If they beat the Packers in the Super Bowl, then yeah.
Exactly. Do we hate the Colts? No. Do we hate the Dolphins? Not really.
No.
Like, it's not really an AFC team that I'm really worried about, in all honesty.
And it's more because of the fact that, yes, you play the NFC teams more, especially in the end. If for the Packers in the NFC North, they play them a lot more. You rarely play AFC teams. You play them randomly in the preseason, and then you play them, I believe it's you cycle AFC teams, like teams from the other conference, like every 5 years,
something like
that in the schedule.
It's impossible to build up a rivalry with an AFC team,
right?
Or a team not in your conference,
right? So it's really hard when you play them once every 5 years if you don't see them in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
So it's really hard to build any kind of like hatred for them besides the fact that everybody else in the NFL doesn't like them because of they inflated balls or something weird like that.
No, we're over
deflated balls.
We're over
Excuse
it.
me.
I say, yeah, maybe they do. Who knows? But anyway, all right. Well, so the Giants and the 49ers, to heck with you. Us Packer fans, we're not a huge fan of you, unfortunately. But anyway, we are a big fan of Connor Christensen. He'll be on the show when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. This is the Bax and Grant Sports Show presented by Sports Radio America. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
A Monday edition of the show, Grant. We chatted a little bit in the first segment about Tim Tebow. Tebow-mania is back and live and well, and good Lord, I'm so excited. And we talked about the Packers a little bit, talked about the hatred for teams outside the division. Who do you think is the most hated team that the Packers play? Let us know. We're curious. Or if you're a fan of a team that's not the Packers, then you hate the Packers, tell us why. We'd love to know. But anyway, Grant, it is Monday, which means that our good friend Connor Christensen's in the studio. And you know what, Grant? That was not his music. That was not.
I was gonna say.
I had one job to play his music, and I played What If Wednesday's music.
I was gonna say this sounds a little different.
It was. You know what I should have.
I can go if you want to do.
No. I mean, you can stay. I mean, let's here. Second time's the charm, as it were. That's what I wanted. Yeah. This is what happens when I don't know what happens. Anyway, once again, hi Connor, how you doing? Welcome to the studio.
We pay you too much to screw up like that.
You pay me too much? I don't think you pay me. Wow, that's news to me. Anyway, I do this because I love it, Grant. I didn't know you were getting paid for it. Anyway, welcome, Connor. We're super excited to have you here. But before we get to your fight corner today, big stuff coming around the NFL. Obviously, AP continues to be the focus of many talks for the Minnesota Vikings. He's been reinstated by the league, as he was on Friday. But then yesterday morning, ESPN's Adam Kaplan appeared on SportsCenter saying that the Minnesota Vikings are still fielding possible offers for the 30-year-old running back. They said that the Vikings, at bare minimum, would take a first-round draft pick and a high-tier cornerback. Now, you as a Vikings fan know the team better than probably Grant and I do. Is that offer, or is that asking price worthy of trading a 30-year-old running back like AP?
I was actually thinking about this a little while ago. Like, realistically, what should they be asking for him? Because I had seen that, too, that they wanted a starting cornerback and a first-round pick. And a Vikings fan instantly is like, oh, man, he's worth, first-round pick and 3 starters and, extra money. But to be completely honest, he's a 30-year-old running back.
Yes.
Honestly, he hasn't shown any decline. But,
no.
Also, we didn't see him last year.
Exactly.
So we don't know exactly what his production will be because we haven't seen him play in a long time.
Who's to say that year off actually hurt him instead of helped him?
Exactly. So It's difficult to say what exactly he's worth now, but I personally think that he is still worth a lot, being that he is, in my opinion, still the best running back in the NFL.
Yes.
And I think that asking for a first-round pick and a starter is not outrageous. I don't know if they'll exactly get it. I could see getting a starter and maybe a third-round pick or a second-round pick, something a little bit lower. I could see them taking something like that.
Yes.
But there are teams out there that might be willing to give him that much.
I think that, yes, for Adrian Peterson, they should definitely get a number 1 draft pick. But as for another lower round draft pick, I don't think so. I think they should settle for a player right now that is proven, that can give them some production instead of prospects. Because the Vikings right now are in a kind of in a breakthrough stage. They're not in a rebuilding stage. They're not in like an elite stage like some of the better teams in the league. They're kind of in the middle right now where they're a couple pieces away from being a really good football team. And if you're going to give one away, I say that you shouldn't take a couple steps back, because if you trade him away for a couple draft picks, I would say currently that's what you would be doing.
Yes, and that's realistic, and that's the thing that bothers me about baseball and hockey too. And I know sometimes when there's drafts and trades that go on, it's like, oh, we'll trade this player and this for future consideration or for future prospects. It's like, well, why not just do a player-for-player trade? Because that way, future prospects, you might that's great, in 2, 3, 4, 7 years. But if your team needs to win now, the whole future prospect thing. It depends on the team. It depends on what's going on.
And the hard thing with player-for-player is you trade players with
the same
ability. So
or you try to pad, here's a little extra cash so we can get that other player as well. The trade business is so it's really difficult to try to figure out. But realistically, though, with this deal for Adrian Peterson, I mean, the hard thing I think people do forget about is that he is 30 years old.
Right.
He came back from a massive injury. So, yes.
But he had a fantastic season after that injury, though.
He did, yes. But I feel like even from a personal and athletic trainer perspective, Connor, you still have to have a little concern about his aging body and the not completeness of his leg.
Definitely. It's always, whenever you see major surgeries, you always wonder how good they'll be coming back. So the fact that he was able to put up the numbers he did and be as explosive as he was is amazing that he was able to do that.
Yeah, and I think you had athletic trainers everywhere going like, wait, how's that possible? I mean, but I'm glad that he had the production that he did. Whether or not Minnesota does actually trade him away is still yet to be seen. The NFL draft only a few short days away, so we'll see what happens with that day too.
Well, and another thing I just thought of was Adrian Peterson, before he was reinstated. This was right after everything was starting to settle down with him.
Yes,
he was saying he doesn't even know if he wants to be back in the league, and coming out and now saying that since Minnesota kind of didn't have his back, he doesn't want to be with the team. And after saying that, and Minnesota's like, well, if we don't get the right deal for you, we're not going to... I'm assuming they're not going to trade him away if they don't get the right deal. Then I would think he might just flat out retire. So the Vikings need to be careful of that, because that's an option for him.
It is.
Because he's been thinking that, hey, maybe I could train for the Olympics and sprinting and do other things like that.
Yeah, if there was talk about that for a while.
Because he was saying that the NFL He was saying the NFL might not be the place for him because of everything that had happened. There might be too much negative emotion surrounding him, so he might end his career a couple seasons early. And
even before everything that happened with the scandals this last season, there was still talk about him retiring maybe a few years early, because he said he's always had the dream of going to be an Olympic sprinter. And he's got the speed for it. He'd be a big sprinter, but he'd still got the speed for it regardless. So,
so
I'm not sure. Yeah,
I feel if he doesn't get what he wants or is happy, I feel like he wouldn't be afraid to retire right away.
Yeah, exactly.
So the Vikings need to be careful of that.
Yes,
because if you're gonna try to at least get something out of him, like try to get a good trade, because if he just flat out retires, then you have gained nothing.
Yeah, and I think that's what they'll probably play the market a little bit on draft day, hope for the best, and if nothing comes after draft day, well, yeah, Adrian Peterson might want to start thinking about, future plans and retirement. It'd be a shame to see him retire with probably, at least another 3 to maybe 5 years at the max left in the league.
I wouldn't say 5.
5 is probably
because
pushing
30
it.
years for a running back, that's actually a pretty old running back, and we've said it before that
we have,
running backs have shorter lifespans in the NFL than other positions like
Yes.
quarterback, where Brett Favre was around forever. Peyton Manning
he
is
just
still
didn't know
around.
when to stop. So.
And then you see running backs that are
true.
average around for like,
Yeah.
you'd see the max like 10, and that's pretty old for running back, so he's getting up there.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I'd say we have a couple seasons left with Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, at the most. All right, Connor. Well, we're here for your Fight Corner on the Monday edition of our show.
Yes.
Last week we talked about steroids and doping and some controversy with that. So what have you got for us this week?
You reminded me about my segment yesterday, so I started looking some stuff up, and I've been mulling this question over, like what exactly do I want to talk about? Because if you guys have noticed, I don't like to just kind of like, this is what's happening.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
I like to talk about things like concepts and other things. So I've been trying to think over the past couple weeks and solidify what my Fight Corner is to me. And I was reading some stats. And, this person defeated this person defeated this person, and all that. And I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about stats. I want to ask you guys a question.
Oh, we like it. I like it
Okay.
being interactive. It's fun.
Yeah, I want to know why you think MMA fighters fight.
Why they fight?
Why do they fight? And then
Interesting.
I'll give you my take on it. But I'm curious what you guys think. Why does an MMA fighter fight?
Well, I know it's not for the money, because kind of we've had this conversation before, and there's no money in MMA. The fighters get paid a couple $1,000 per fight, which to us seems a lot, but to them, compared to other athletes, it's
nothing,
like
yeah.
it's like pennies. So I would say it's definitely not for the money. It's not really for fame, because they're not extremely famous unless you're Ronda Rousey and just destroy people.
True.
And I wouldn't even say that she's famous, just people who happen to flick on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say money, wouldn't say for fame. It could be possibly, you could say it's because it's just what they've been trained, it's what they're good at, it's their passion. Maybe they originally learned it for self-defense and then found that they were really good at it and found that, this could actually be a pastime, and they found enjoyment out of that. I don't know how you can get enjoyment out of getting the crap beat out of you as you're beating the crap out of somebody else. But there's
sick people in this world,
There's
Grant.
something
I don't
out
know.
there for everybody, and MMA fighting it's an up-and-coming sport. So I would say to MMA fighters to stick with it, because I believe the money would be coming, but just right now, just like stick with the fact that it's something enjoyable for you. So for me, that long answer was
Okay.
it's something that they enjoy.
All right,
Well,
Baxter,
Grant
what
pretty
do you
much
think?
took every single thing I was going to say,
You're
because he doesn't know
welcome.
when to stop talking, apparently.
I really don't. I like to
I just need
ramble.
you're done, like stop. No, for me, like the biggest thing I was going to hint on, because there's not a lot of money in it, I would say that passion is probably the biggest thing, because it takes a lot of guts and glory and ram. No, that's something else. To, like you said, get consistently kicked and punched and smacked. That's why, like, it boggles my mind why people like willingly want to be boxers and willingly want to do sports where you're going to get just literally beat up. Like, you've got no pads, pretty much nothing. You just one-on-one. And you have to have a burning desire and a passion or massive anger issues that you want to get out. And I feel like that is kind of like the main thing that would do it. And obviously having a passion is kind of every sport, but you have to have a huge passion, I feel like, especially to fighting, to be putting your body on the line every single time you step into that rink or that cage, knowing that, look, I might get my you-know-what kicked out of me tonight, or I might go unconscious, but you know what? Dang it, I love this sport, and I'm going to play it anyway. So I feel like passion is probably the biggest thing that would fuel me if I were a fighter.
Well, and if you see some of these guys' faces after they fight, they have deformed ears, their noses have been broken about 100 different times, their face is all scarred up, and they're not like the most attractive looking people in the world. I think a segment should be, what's the least unattractive sport, or like fighting or hockey, because you get some pretty ugly brutes in
That's
those
true,
sports.
yeah.
But anyway, besides, until I get some people
Anyway,
knocking
so
down the
I'll
door
stop
to beat
him
me
now
up.
so he's not talking. But anyway, so why do you ask, Connor? What is your take on that?
I have an interesting view on this because I have fought people before.
Yes.
I have. And so I kind of understand the motivations behind it. So you guys are talking about passion and all that. And instantly in my mind, I'm like, well, you look at MMA fighters and their press releases, and they're up at each other's faces, and it's like they take okay guys, they take pictures with their hands up at each other, like inches away from each other before their fights.
Yep.
And that is basically all for the viewer.
Yeah.
Like, whether or not they actually hate each other, I doubt it. Personally.
Usually not. No.
Yeah, no, I doubt they actually. Now, sometimes you do. You do get some
There's
MMA
always- there's-
fighters
yeah,
that
there's
just
always those
despise
people.
each other and just want to destroy each other. But for the most part, it's what we see is just a show for, for them to make money.
It's no business like show business.
Exactly. So why do they fight then? It's not for the money, and you can make the argument it is for fame because in their circles, MMA fighters are like known throughout the world. Like Ronda Rousey, I would argue is famous. First of all, she's been in movies.
Oh,
Like
did not know.
she was in
Yeah.
The Expendables 3, which is a huge action flick that every guy went to go see, except except a couple. Yeah, it's okay. I didn't go to see it, but I did see it eventually. Anyway, but it's an action flick. Lots of guys go see that. Lots of people go see that. She's definitely been recognized. Like when she showed up at WrestleMania.
Yeah. People were freaking
did you know
out.
That, Grant?
Yes, you told me.
People
You
were
told me.
freaking out. It's
So-
like, Ronda Rousey's
Yeah,
here.
and she was wearing a Dragon Ball Z shirt. Awesome. Anyway, side note for that. But when she shows up at WrestleMania, everybody everybody there knew who she was.
Yeah.
Because as soon as she hopped the fence to get in, people went crazy because they were like, "Oh man, Ronda Rousey, she's about to destroy someone." And you don't submit someone in 16 seconds and not get known.
Usually.
And
yeah.
14 seconds.
And 14 seconds. Yeah. And then Anderson Silva. Huge name. Everybody knew the name Anderson
Even
Silva.
I knew.
Yeah.
Even I knew that.
There are other really big names. Randy Couture. He was huge. Bruce Lee. You've never heard of Randy Couture?
Nope.
Really?
Nope.
Wow, okay.
Is his sister's name Juicy?
Oh, my goodness. Bruce Lee, started the sport. Everybody knows who that is.
Yes,
Yeah.
but we've had our conversations about Bruce Lee.
Yes, we have, and I don't know. I don't like
That's for another time.
For another time. So, back to my original point. Why does an MMA fighter fight? And I can say, you guys don't understand hitting each other, getting hit. How is that fun? Well, depending on the circumstances, it actually can be one of the most fun things ever.
I bet it can, yeah.
Because they are the toughest people on the planet.
Right.
When you think about it, you think about someone tough, you think about, Clay Matthews on the Packers. I would not want to fight that dude. He's huge. And
Hockey
he's
players.
super strong. Hockey players, some of the toughest people on the planet. Rugby players are really
gosh,
tough.
yeah. Nah.
So rugby players are really tough.
Hey, man.
However,
hey, man.
they have rules about how they can, even in hockey when you can get away with getting in a fight with someone, they'll break it up eventually. With
So you can't
UFC,
hit the
destroy
refs
somebody.
first, and then
UFC, that is your purpose.
Yes.
Is to make the other person not move anymore.
that
when
blows
you-
my
when
mind.
you
I'm
think
just
about
like,
it,
why would you willingly want to do that?
Yeah, and there is nothing that shows you yourself and someone else more than fighting. You cannot learn more about yourself and about somebody else than through fighting. Because it is the truest form of expression, in my opinion. It is the truest form of expression. So if you guys really want to get to know each other as hosts, just have a fight. I'll videotape it. We'll put it on Twitter.
We'll make the Bax and Grant Sports Show fighting tournament.
Perfect. Well, I got to know Grant pretty well last night when I scored 4 goals on him in our intramural soccer game. So.
You want to know how many of those goals were more than shootout goals? They were just... You were already in the box with 0 defenders on me.
Two of those were that. I had a nice turn-in shot one that you got a hand to.
Well,
but-
and then the other one, you dangled the whole defense by just running around in circles. And then so there was pretty much nothing I could do anyway, because you're just running around in circles and my team is all following you. And I was just here we go. And then you pretty much had the wide open net anyway on that one.
You can't give me that far post, Grant. I'll bury it every time.
There's nothing I could do. You had the whole net. And I did get a hand on that one. I almost got it. Anyway.
Oh, wow, there's a little tension here.
I'll see you in the playoffs, Grant.
We haven't won a game yet.
You still qualify. Here, well,
Yeah,
Really?
Everybody makes the
everybody
playoffs.
goes to the
Oh,
playoffs.
cool.
Yeah.
We're going to win.
Anyway, but okay, Connor. So thank
So,
you for
yeah.
that. Any other final thoughts before we let you go?
No.
No?
I think I said what I did.
Are there any big fights coming up soon that we need to be? I know the whole Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather thing. That's 6 years away, but ESPN's hyping it. No, it's it's actually only a week or so away, isn't it? In May? Or?
It's in May. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm paying attention to it. At the same time, I just want them both to stop.
Another segment. I do want to get your thoughts about that. So maybe next week we'll ask you about that because I'm curious to know, because we do talk about but we don't talk about the boxing world too much.
That's true.
So
that's because the boxing world isn't as like.
Well, it's true.
It's not as fun as the MMA world.
But it's getting better.
Right? What is that?
They're trying to get boxing more popular. It's on NBC.
NBC.
NBC
Sports Network.
Sports. Yeah, they're hyping them up a little more, and they're having like a special night. They've had 2 fights that are premiered, and they've been trying to get it more televised.
See, that's the thing. You hear about the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight and they're both like,
good.
In the boxing world, they're both ancient.
Right.
So
they really are.
And the fact that you only hear about that fight and you don't hear about current boxers.
Like the up-and-comers.
Yeah, exactly. You don't, and even the people that have been there for a couple of years and have been fighting for a couple of years, you don't hear about them.
No.
And that's because there is no one standout. At least not yet, or we haven't seen them.
Wait for it.
Exactly. I'm really hoping boxing makes a comeback because it's one of the coolest things ever to watch.
I did see. I saw a picture yesterday on Twitter. I think it was. It was a picture of Sylvester Stallone and Manny. I think and Manny. And they said who would win, Rocky or Manny. I think it was either Manny
fight.
or yeah.
It's an unfair fight because Rocky was in the movies. He was 202 pounds.
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know if it was Manny or Floyd. Either way, it was like one of those 2 guys.
Pounds. No, he's lighter than that. I forget his weight class, but it's small compared to.
Rocky would just.
So Rocky would. Well, the movies Rocky would win because Sylvester Stallone,
exactly,
he's a tough guy. I don't want to fight him.
No.
At the same time, he's not a boxer. He's gotten some training for his movies, but he's not a boxer. He's never been through what a boxer goes through. Okay, all right, guys.
Exactly. That's how I would settle this fight. Like, stop it. All right, well, Connor, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it. The good people can find you on Twitter. Where, sir?
At ConnorDC126.
ConnorDC126. All right, thank you, sir. We will see you again on Friday for your health tip and maybe some more Vikings news, depending on what happens with AP. So
definitely.
And start 'em, sit 'em, cut 'em. So
there we go.
All right, thank you so much, Connor. We will see you again on Friday, sir. Okay. Enjoy your week.
Yep, you guys too. See you later.
Thank you very much. All right, Grant. Now I'm actually going to play the rap music this time.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. They're all right.
You're doing your job.
I know. Thank you.
Do your job.
Oh my, get off the mic. Jeez.
All right, bye.
All right, see ya. That's fine. I'll do the show. I don't need you. So Baxter's rant today, the new segment. No, all right, Grant's rant. Part of the show where Grant gets 30 seconds to rant about anything he wants in the sports world. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
All right, with 30 seconds on the clock, on your mark, get set, go.
The Athletics and Royals series is getting heated after the bench is cleared for the 3rd straight game in a row.
Jeez.
After just a heated game, and Kelvin Herrera threw a 100-mile fastball right up in Brett Lowry's grill, was ejected, and then pointed at his head. Now, the Athletics were ticked off and said that he was going to try to hit him in the head next time. Kelvin Herrera, I believe his story a little more, said he was trying to think about it. He didn't mean for the ball to get that close because it was also rainy, so he lost the grip of the ball a little bit.
And that's something that people forget about, too. If the ball is a little rainy, if it's a little hard, the pitchers are doing the very best they can to hold on to that ball. Clearing the benches 3 games in a row, though? That's a bit much.
My first thing, because I wish I had like a minute and a half on that one,
I know,
because I had a couple points. Is like
you can make them in another like 10 seconds. Go.
I'm pressured.
When we come back from the break, you can chat about it fast. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to update what happened in the NFL, NHL, and NBA playoff scenes right now. And Grant will apparently continue his rant. So this is the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Bax and Grant Sports Show, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Bax.
And this is Grant.
All right, Grant, you can finish what you were ranting about. I'll give you another minute.
I just want to briefly say,
go ahead.
My thing with the umpires, they threw 5 players out of the game from the Royals, and then they threw out a player from the Royals previously. Ned Yost, previous Brewers manager, actually.
That's right. Back in the day.
He was thrown out. I felt it was really early in the game. It was the first inning, and I didn't feel, because I watched it, I didn't feel like he was doing anything wrong. The umpire also threw out an injured Royals player, didn't throw out any athletics, and I felt like even though the Royals did win the game, I don't think it was handled as well. But I do like what the MLB does is that they have like a system set up for teams that have had like history throughout the year with fights, that they have like a shorter leash on them and stuff like that.
Well, that's good.
But I felt like the umpires did not handle that game very well.
No, and it's unfortunate to see issues like that arise. So, speaking of fighting, Grant, it goes hand in hand with the update of what's happening in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs right now. A lot of excitement has happened the last few days. Some of the series look to be pretty much wrapped up. If you talk about the Montreal Canadiens, they're up 3-0 on the Ottawa Senators.
Well, if you would let me, I can talk about that one first.
If you want to, I figured since it was kind of a lock, didn't know how much you wanted to spend on it. So,
well, actually, it's because Montreal, the last 2 games have been overtime winners.
Interesting. Okay,
and actually, last night's should not have gone in. That it went on short side. Anderson pretty much had the post cleaned up, but he just let it sneak in. Very little space left open on the post, so that was his fault on that one. And yeah, so the Canadiens, do look like they have a pretty commanding lead. But Ottawa, I mean, it's going to be really hard for them to win this series. It's kind of unfortunate because they did lose last night 2-1 in overtime. Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate. I'm pulling for them to win at least a couple of games because they've come really close a couple of times.
Yes, and then obviously looking over in the Eastern Conference, I mean, Tampa Bay and Detroit, they're tied 1-1. An interesting series after Detroit surprisingly won that first game. Tampa Bay battled back. What if Sports, our friends over there, think the Lightning are going to go farther than you think they're going to go? What have you noticed to the first games in this series?
They've been kind of blowouts, or not really blowouts. The Red Wings controlled the first game,
yes,
and then Lightning absolutely took it to Detroit the next game, which I feel that's kind of like how Detroit works, though, because sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. I don't know really if the Tampa Bay Lightning are like that. I felt like they were a little bit more consistent, but they let the first game get out of hand. Now they have to go play 2 games over in Detroit. It'd be interesting how they handle it. I feel like if Detroit, though, has a good home stance, they should have no problem. Even if they lose one, I feel if the series tied goes 2-2, I feel like Detroit is more of a hard-knuckle brawling team than Tampa Bay Lightning. They have a little bit more endurance. So I feel like if it still goes after Game 4, tied 2-2, I'd give the upper hand to the Red Wings.
Okay. And then the Rangers-Penguins game, Penguins series, they're knotted at 1 apiece. They play tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. Penguins won the first game, if I remember.
Penguins
correctly.
lost.
They lost the first game. That's right. It was 2-1. The Rangers won 2-1 in that game, and then the Penguins won the second game
4-3.
4-3. So now, interesting series. It's knotted up. You said the Penguins.
I would not be surprised if they win the series. They had an awful first game. Well, not awful. They had an awful first period of the first game, which unfortunately put them down for the rest of the game. And the second game, they came out much better. Crosby, I believe, got 2 goals. That's what they needed for him. He hadn't scored in the playoffs against the Rangers in, years. And so it was good for him to get back on his scoring horse, because that's what he's a goal scorer. He has a nose for the puck. He knows how to put it in the net.
Yes.
That's what they need more from him, and if they want to get out of the series alive, Crosby needs to step up, and I know he's done it in the past. He had a great game, too. They need to continue that if they want to get out of the series.
Yes, and then looking at that other game in the Eastern Conference, you had in a thrilling Game 3, the Islanders, it took just 15 seconds in overtime for John Tavares to score the winning goal for the Islanders. So now they have the 2-1 series lead on the Capitals.
Yeah, and I'm I'm a little surprised by that. I'm not going to lie. I was not expecting the Islanders to come out with this much steam.
Yep.
I had Washington going on next. I did not have the Islanders.
They must have listened to the show and be like, you know what, Grant, whoever you are, we're going to prove you wrong.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I'm okay
we
with
appreciate it. If you guys are listening, thanks.
Yeah, if you want to prove me wrong, go right ahead. I'll create some exciting hockey.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Islanders are really stepping it up, especially after they had that big end-of-the-season slide.
Yes. All right, and flipping over to the Western Conference, the Blues and the Wild. The Wild won Game 1. Blues battled back and won the Game 2.
Had a great Game 2.
They won 4-2?
Yes, they won.
They won. Or
3-2. Let me
3-2, 4-2, 4-1.
4-1.
I'm sorry. I thought somebody scored 4. I couldn't remember who.
But it was 4-1.
Yes.
And Vladimir Tarasenko had a hat trick. Granted, one goal was an empty netter. Doesn't matter. It still counts. He had his first playoff hat trick. It was the first one this year.
Good for him.
So congratulations to him. One was a tip-in, one was a pretty good shot, and then obviously the third one was the empty netter.
Yep.
So, fantastic game. St. Louis Blues shut down Minnesota. Minnesota had some good, strong attacks, but not nearly as well as the first game. But now they're going back to Minnesota, and Minnesota, they have a great home crowd. They had a great playoffs last year. It's going to be hard to win in that building. So, if the Blues can at least take one game, that would be really good. If they take 2 games, that'd be even... I'd love to see that, but I'm not taking that for granted. But if they play like they played in Game 2, I feel like they'd have no problem.
Yep, and that game is tonight at 7 Central, so keep an eye on that. I'm sure Grant will be watching that game with bated breath. Now, a series, Grant, in the Western Conference, the Blackhawks and the Predators. Blackhawks are up 2-1 right now in the series. Now, it's hard because Nashville had such a rocky end of their season. Their last maybe 15 to 20 games were so roller coaster like, and now they're down 2-1. Chicago, though,
well, the whole second half of the season,
they really was. Yeah, they had that 9-game losing streak, 7-game losing streak, and they were just we saw them drop. And they
were unstoppable at one point.
They were,
but to be fair, that was a lot of teams at one point. The Blues had their moment.
Yes,
Wild had their moment. The Anaheim Ducks had their moment. The Islanders had their moment in the season. The Canadiens had their moment in the season, as well as the Predators, and they just had, you could argue, this season that there were peaking moments, that teams were higher, and that they just kind of lost steam, and the Nashville Predators went down. And now, to get on with it, the Chicago Blackhawks are now up 2-1 in the series. So
you would pick Chicago to win that series, hadn't you?
I did,
okay.
And because Chicago is a very decent team, I believe that... I don't think that the Predators, with how they've been playing at the latter end of the season, really deserved to... I wouldn't say deserve, because if you win the series, you obviously deserve it.
Sure.
But I just thought that the Blackhawks were the better team.
Yeah.
And that would win the series.
Yep. All right, now moving on to the next one, the Anaheim Ducks against the Winnipeg Jets. They've only played 2 games. Game 3 tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time. You can catch that on NBC Sports Network. The Ducks hold a 2-0 lead on the series.
Yes.
I don't think either of us are really surprised by this. Winnipeg, they're an okay team, but Anaheim, you had mentioned multiple times before the playoffs started, were a fierce team that you thought could go pretty far in the West.
But here's the big thing, is that what people are really excited for, Anaheim has barely squeaked out the last 2 wins. So Winnipeg could easily be up 2-0 in this series. It could be 1-1, but it's not. It's 2-0, they're down, they're going to have to come back. So
is Winnipeg capable of that?
They're very capable because the last 2 games they've played very tough. And then here's a big thing that people are really, really, really excited for.
Yes.
That this is the first time in a while since the Winnipeg Jets had been reinstated. I'm not really sure with the whole organization what's going on with that, but I believe they were in Winnipeg for a while, and then the team was done, and then it started back up a couple seasons ago.
Stupid question. Winnipeg's in Canada, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And of course, the big Canadian series, everybody's like going huge over Vancouver, Calgary, and Montreal, Ottawa, and then of course you have Winnipeg, another Canadian team.
Would you say that they're kind of like the forgotten of the 5?
Well, because they're newer. They're newer.
I suppose. So the fan base is not as fierce.
Oh, but it is fierce because people are so excited that they're coming back for their first playoff series.
I suppose.
Everybody is expecting the building to be absolutely insane tonight. Everybody is really excited. This is probably the biggest game of the night, is the first home game in Winnipeg. People are really excited, so I'm really excited.
I try to catch some of that game,
I will
hopefully.
probably try to catch some of that game because the Blues game will end by that point. So
I will. We should watch it. That'd be fun.
It'll be really exciting.
Exactly. I do want to say fast before we get to the last series that I've developed a bigger love for hockey now because of you. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Good,
I actually enjoy watching hockey. Not that I didn't before, but now that I have more of a tie to the league,
understand.
I understand a little bit more about it. Yeah. All right. So the last series, Vancouver and Calgary, right? Calgary.
The Calgary Flames.
Calgary Flames. Flames are up 2-1 in the series. Game 4 is tomorrow night on USA Network at 9 p.m. Central.
Yeah, the Flames just took it to the Vancouver Canucks last night. And the last 2 games have been just huge, just really aggressive games. Last night in the third period alone, there was 40 penalty minutes, and after the game, game 2, 100 penalty minutes were dealt out.
Wow.
It's a Canadian series. You expect it of that.
Darn those Canadians.
It's just tough.
It is.
Tough series, and they're playing it really hard, but the Flames definitely took it to the Canucks. The Canucks were not doing well at all. The score was 4-2, but it was actually a little wider of a victory than that. So Calgary up 2-1 in the series right now.
Yep, exactly. Now, before we move on to the next segment, Grant, on Wednesday, you're going to be giving us some little bit of insight about the NHL draft lottery coming up. There's some high prospects
the lottery's done. If you want me to talk about it.
Well, the lottery's done, but I'm saying you're going to have some more in depth for it in terms of the top players.
What I just wanted to mention was what happened with the lottery because it's different than any other sport.
It is.
Because what happens is all teams that don't make it to the playoffs based on their record get a percentage on what they will draw, and the top 4 teams, I don't know exactly how it works, it's really confusing, but the bottom 2 teams have more of a chance of getting the number 1 pick.
Yep.
And for the 4th time in the last 6 years, because I think it happened 3 times in the last 5 years, the Edmonton Oilers got the number 1 draft pick, and people are kind of upset by that because they've seen the Oilers that and
cheat codes.
Also, they find that they wasted picks, even though that there's some top players on their line. Mm-hmm. I think Neil Yakupov is the number 1 draft pick. And then they also have Ryan.
Is that a last name?
Yakupov, yes.
Oh, I thought you said Neil Yakupov. I'm like,
Neil Yakupov. It's like Nail. Yeah, it's like it's weird.
I thought that was one word. I'm like, what?
No, people call him Yak.
Yak.
The Yak. But Yakupov. You also have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who is a top player, and then Taylor Hall. I had to think of the name for a second. He's their big star player.
Okay, well, the NHL, always an exciting time. Now we're going to flip to the NBA real quick and just kind of give you a brief summary of everything that's happened in the playoffs so far. Starting in the Eastern Conference, the Atlanta Hawks win Game 1 against the Brooklyn Nets, as it were, by a score of 99-92. Not real crazy at that one. Game 2 will be Wednesday night in Atlanta. That'll be at 7 p.m. Eastern. Flipping then, you've got the Cavaliers and the Celtics. A pretty close game, only 13-point difference in that regard. It's 113-100. Kyrie Irving did drop 30 points in that game last night, so that was very impressive from his perspective. The hometown team for Grant and I, the Milwaukee Bucks, lose their first game to the Chicago Bulls, 103-91. Grant and I aren't too really surprised about that. I mean, if Milwaukee is able to win it maybe 2 games in the series, I think we'd be pretty happy with that.
I'm already happy with them.
Yeah, they made it to the playoffs. It's huge for them. They're rebranding the organization. They're getting a new new stadium. There's a lot of really good things coming up. Now, the last game in the East, the Toronto Raptors and the Washington Wizards. I had an opportunity to watch this game, Grant. It was on at work, so I watched it. It was a slow day. It was a very interesting game to watch. John Wall, I know you don't like him, but he played a very good game. The Wizards...
Irrelevant.
Exactly, right. The Wizards go on to win 93-86.
And this is going to be the close series.
It's going to be
watching.
It was a fun game to watch. The game was in Toronto. There was not only was the stadium packed, but the surrounding areas around the stadium were just monster full of people, and it was crazy. Over in the West, the Warriors from Golden State took out the Pelicans 106-99. Game 2 of that series is tonight.
Stephen Curry, I know, dropped a 30 bomb on him as well. He had a fantastic game, and there was one, of course, ridiculous shot where he drove the hoop, got fouled, laid it up, kissed it off the top of the glass, and it just dropped in. And I was like, "Can you please stop?"
He was so blasé about it too, oh whoop, and oh, I made it. Oh yeah, it's like what?
Well,
no,
nice jazz hands. I like the jazz hands you threw in there,
and all that jazz. All right, Houston and Dallas. The Rockets take the first game in the battle for Texas, or Texas as they say it. 118.
Is that a soccer thing?
Yeah, Texas. That's the Spanish way to say Texas. 118-108 for the Rockets. You've got the Clippers, the sailing vessel, as it were, that explodes. Anyway, the Clippers surprisingly beat the Spurs 107-92 in Game 1. Now, you can argue the Clippers have the better offense, but people think that the Spurs are going to outlast them. They'll probably take them to 7 games, assuming the Spurs have enough stamina to get that far. And then the last game in the series, in the West, you have the Trailblazers and the Grizzlies. Grizzlies go for 100 against the Trailblazers, who only grabbed 86 points. First games of the series, it's always hard to get a full feel of what the series are going to be like, but I feel like so far, not an awful way to start off. Pretty much what a lot of people thought would be the opening victories. Now comes the real matchups, though, where you actually have to play that team again, and then again, and then again.
Well, and interesting note, just the 4-5 seed games, the 5 seeds took both game 1s. So really close games.
Yes, yep, you are very true. All right, Grant, it is Monday, so we're going to play Fact or Fiction quickly before we head out for another edition of the show. Fact or Fiction for you, Grant, is that Fact or Fiction that Sam Bradford will be on the Eagles roster come opening day?
That's really tough, but I think fiction.
Fiction,
I think
okay.
they're originally when I saw it, I think they're going to use him as trade bait. Even though it's kind of like, meh, why would you pick up a player to trade him? No big deal. It happens sometimes, so I think they're going to trade him. They're going to, I don't know, though. What would you go try to pick up a different quarterback? Or are you going to try to just stick with Sanchez and then you have Tebow as backup?
The defense needs a little bit of help, too, so they might do that. Or maybe get some more wide receivers as well. So I say fiction. I think he'll be gone before opening day comes for NFL. Fact or fiction, Grant, that the Milwaukee Bucks will win more than 35 games next season?
I'd say fact. With how they've played this year, they won over 35 games.
They did. They won 41.
And I think because they had I'm forgetting the name, and I should know because I see him on TV all the time.
Jabari Parker?
Yes.
Yes.
He was injured for the majority of the season.
He was.
And the Bucks still held their own. They weren't even supposed to make it very far without him, but with him back next year, and if he stays healthy, I believe that they could have a very successful season. And it's a very young team. They have a lot of prospects on their team. A lot of their stars are young, so all they can do is get better from here. So I see the next few years for the Bucks to look very promising.
Yes, I would have to agree with that. I say fact as well. Jabari Parker coming back mixed with a whole host. The Bucks are the third youngest team in the NBA next to the Jazz and the 76ers, and they turned out just fine this season. Now the 76ers and the Jazz had atrocious years, but it's good to see that a young team can flourish under the right coach, a.k.a. Jason Kidd. He really did a fantastic
job. He's a good guy.
job.
I like him as a coach.
He is, yeah. I had a chance to attend one of his press conferences one time when I was helping cover a Bucks game for ESPN Milwaukee, and he was a nice guy. He didn't speak very loud. He just kind of was like, yeah, that's how the game went, and it was a good job, and I'm proud of the guys. Like, he was very, very reserved. He's never was like a crazy kind of a sort of guy to my knowledge, but very reserved and very well respected. And I think he commands that respect of how calm and composed he is as a coach.
He knows what he wants from you, and he doesn't he's not it's kind of like the disappointed parent kind of look, like, almost when you do something wrong.
Done better, boys?
He's he just gives you the look, and you don't want to disappoint me because he was a great player in his day, just a great guy, and just the look he gives you is just kind of like, oh, okay. He kind of has the steely look.
Exactly. All right. Well, Grant, another exciting edition of the Baxton Grant Sports Show. A little bit longer show than we normally do, but we had a lot to talk about today. So apologies if you're like, are they going to ever stop talking? No! You can't have it.
I need to get a buzzer or something.
We need like a for Grant or something to stop him. But thank you so much to Connor Christensen for coming on, sharing his thoughts about Adrian Peterson and with his fight corner. Grant, closing thoughts before we shoot off for the day?
I was glad you were going to ask me because I was worried you weren't. Because I do have something. I just want to say thank you to you, Baxter, because if anybody's curious, Baxter is the one that had the idea to start this. It's been fantastic. I thought he was just kidding, but I'm glad that he wasn't. It's just fun to do. He puts in a lot of work to this. He does most of the behind the scenes stuff. I just show up. He's the one who's just been adding and just kind of pulled me by the hair. So I'm thankful for everything that you do, Baxter, and thank you for making this what it is.
Well, I appreciate that, Grant. Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see where the future of this show goes as well. For Grant Coppersmith and Connor Christensen, I am Baxter Colburn. We will see you all again on Wednesday for what, Grant?
Hump Day!
Yeah! Have a good rest of your day, folks. See ya!